Arizona audit is in. Fucking almost. Look, gang, we all know these audit results have taken longer to come out than Richard Simmons. Don't judge, he's been a swinging bachelor this entire time. But with the finish line in fucking sight, it was time for the Cyber Ninjas to proffer their penultimate findings. Not the results of the audit itself, mind you. Seems to me they're kind of still holding out hope Maricopa County actually come to their senses and enact the will of their voters for once.
I have to say that every audit I've ever been a part of, usually whatever the organization is that you're working with, is available to answer questions or run ideas by and to get some feedback on findings. And that's one of the more difficult things with this audit is to not have that feedback loop and not be able to ask questions on things that could be solved very quickly.
From Maricopa County.
Correct, from Maricopa County.
But instead, an outlandishly detailed presentation where all the inconsistencies in the election and its result were splayed across the screen wider than a tranny pedophile reading library books to a Flagstaff kindergarten class. And if the media's been painting these pencil-neck noobs as the 56 KGB for 4 fucking months, the Cyber Ninjas must have missed that memo because these cats came out swinging. You asked for evidence, folks? You wanted receipts? Here's shit, fuck. Have the entire bank statement.
Ken Bennett was stating earlier about some of the duplicated ballots. Specifically, we've had a lot of problems with the way that those were recorded and the way they were received over. I think probably the best way to do this is go over, I think it's actually Exhibit B. What we have here is we actually took a few examples out where serial numbers really should be unique. There should be one original ballot with a serial number and one ballot which is the duplicate of it with the same serial number. When you take a look at this chart, the first column is the box ID. That's the box that it came out of. And then you take a look at the next column, it'll tell you whether it's a type, what the type is. Dupe means it's a duplicate. DSD, it means that it's actually the original ballot. And you'll notice that the last column is a serial number, but they're in groups of 3, which shouldn't really happen. So we have 2 original ballots that have the same exact serial number, and we have only one that was duplicated from it. And these are just a handful of examples that we have that go through it. And so we have a whole bunch of ballots that also don't have any serial number of them, so it's quite possible that for the second one with the same serial number, there's another one that matches up with it that literally doesn't have a serial number on it. So for example, we have 74,243 mail-in ballots where there is no clear record of them being sent. And just to be clear, here in the state of Arizona, there's EV32s and EV33s. EV32s is supposed to give a record of when a mail-in ballot is sent, and an EV33 is supposed to give a record of when the mail-in ballot is received. And so there should be an equal, there should be more EV32s, more sent out than there are that are received. Specifically with these, we can tie them to a specific individual that was mailed to. And so we have 74,000 where we have them came back from individuals where we don't have a clear indication that they were ever sent out to them.
No, that wasn't the wax in your ears rustling. You just heard, and more importantly saw, evidence of multiple repeated ballot serial numbers duplicated as a result of damage, believe it or not, actually a fairly routine process in any election, as is the act of having to print the same ballot more than once, whether due to printer or poll worker error, for the record, except that then, those ballots were then duplicated a fucking again. And again. And like a SoundCloud rapper mumble-fucking over the sound of a sprinkler system, duplicated a fucking again. And given the tens of thousands of these duplicated ballots lacked any serial number at all, many were then duplicated ad fucking astra. Historical levels of fraud or historical levels of incompetence. We report, you decide. And speaking of fucking incompetence.
So we utilized kinematic artifact detection in order to take a look at all of the ballots in order to process to figure out how they work and how they function. And if we can actually get Exhibit D up. Ballots are designed as such so that when you fill out one side of the ballot, it's very important that if you fill out a bubble, it does happen to bleed through. It doesn't do so in a manner that would actually impact the way the vote was cast. So ballots are designed in the manner to make that so. In order to make sure they're actually aligned, on one side of the ballot, there is the circle and X's that you see, in this. And on the other side of the ballot, there's actually printed a cross. And when a ballot is properly aligned, that cross will actually line up perfectly. If you backlight it, this cross will actually line up perfectly. And that's actually the image you're looking at. We have a backlit image of a ballot, and you're seeing in the front side the circle and the cross, and the inside it's very similar to, say, like a gun sight. Now, if you look carefully at that top image, you'll actually notice that it's a little bit offset. Based on standards, that's actually the maximum it's supposed to be offset for a ballot to be viewed as valid and processed, so there aren't any issues with it. If you take a look at that image down at the bottom, you'll notice that it's 1900%. This is actually something from an actual ballot out of Maricopa County that we ran into, where it was out of calibration. And just to give a little bit more perspective, if we scroll down in the PDF to the next section, but this graphic, you want to be in the bullseye. The bullseye in the center is actually the check marks on how offset those things should be. And just to be specific, from a calibration standpoint, I think it's supposed to be within 100% of in it, and we made our box about 300%. From the way this is calibrated. And you'll see that the average is actually, take on the top right-hand corner, the average on this is actually 1,024%, and the worst ballot was 3,200%.
Now, I know some of that will doubtless seem somewhat impenetrable, but folks, before I break this down, you first have to frame these facts in the context of what the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, not to mention the teeny bopper tism fit whoever manages the Maricopa Twitter account, has misled us to believe in the past and present. We went from most secure Arizona election ever to catching the county red-handed with a 49% error rate in aligning their ballots. Why is this relevant, you ask?
If they're offset, what it means is if it bleeds through, it can potentially cause an overvote. It can potentially cause you to vote for someone that you intend to vote for, or so forth. This is actually a newsletter that was put out by Maricopa County that talks about the paper types that are utilized. And specifically, they state that they use vote secure paper. Now, if vote secure paper is utilized, it's actually a thick paper. It has a special coating on it that helps make sure there isn't bleed through. And so it would help ensure that bleed through wouldn't be a problem, even if things happen to be not perfectly calibrated. But if you scroll down to the next page, we're going to give you an example of an actual ballot where you can see the bleed through that goes through. And you can see that the bleed through is actually very, very close to where votes are cast. Based on our discussions with paper experts, they specifically state that paper is thick enough that it wouldn't bleed through, and we are seeing a lot of very thin paper stock being utilized, especially on election day.
Could it have been in error? It's possible, in the same way it's possible your wife and the fucking plumber just really enjoy each other's company, which is why they're together all day while you're at work. Could it have happened that way? Sure, asshole. In the context of the county refusing to cooperate with the audit, outright obstructing the effort, while George Soros' pet sheriff Paul Penzone cooks up a horseshit excuse not to send over any routers used in the election because it could compromise ongoing investigations. Fucking what, Paul? That's the best you got.
So what have we not received from the county that we were supposed to get to be able to do the forensic analysis of?
I think if I'm going to put these in order of criticality, we have not received the router configuration files. We have not received the router data. And Mr. Bennett and myself were in multiple conversations with county officials in which they had agreed to provide that information to us. We have not received that due to a response from the county in May stating that they would not provide that because the data would compromise law enforcement operations and would also potentially compromise PII information of Maricopa County residents that had not already been turned over as part of the audit request.
Not to mention mass media hysteria about said audit and the other irregularities already discovered. Is it likely, folks? About as likely as Sheriff Penzone picking the correct shade of shoe polish to cover that bald spot for once. Still a better cover-up job than, we need the routers for an investigation, though. Why in the world-rending fuck would the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office be reusing election internet equipment to launch ongoing criminal investigations exactly? Particularly seeing as Karen Hobbs over there claims if a single cyber ninja so much as sneezes on a voting machine, the fucking thing has to be replaced with a gold-plated fucking replica. Something she never said of the previous 2 state-conducted independent audits, by the fucking way.
Recently in the news, I don't know if you have heard or not, but our Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, made a statement a few weeks ago that she would not allow these machines to be used again because she could not verify that we had not, you, not us, you had tampered with them. I don't understand that statement because it is my understanding that when election machines, no matter whose machines they are, that election machines are supposed to be calibrated and certified before any election goes on to make sure that those machines haven't been tampered with, that they are calibrated correctly, and I believe they do that also after an election.
Madam President, I certainly understand your confusion, and I share that with you. If I also might add, Madam President, that position that they must replace all of the voting equipment is at odds with the public statements that were made by the Maricopa County officials following the 2 independent audits that they conducted early in this year.
Did I mention Polly Problem Glasses over here is running? Waddling for governor? Good goddamn luck, bitch. Between your Portland politics and weapons-grade finger-waggling, you got the unbridled allure of a school shooting. Sure, Tucson and Flagstaff have gone bluer than the Caribbean, but I don't see the state electing a broad who reminds us all of that bitch homeroom teacher we all had in high school. You know the one! The black-frame, glasses-bedecked, clipped-haired, sour-faced fembot who could talk for 20 minutes about why the Pledge of Allegiance is technically hate speech, but the Communist Manifesto is merely misunderstood, whose sexual frustration hangs so thick in the air it registers on Doppler radar. You remember the fucking one. And Katie Nobbs has been a busy little beaver, folks, playing goalie for the fusillade of evidence presented at this press conference. And folks, this ain't even the main assault. As incriminating as this all was, this is without signature matching, and we have yet to even hear the fucking results. Is the full court damage control from the Pravda press suddenly screaming into focus for you all? We weren't supposed to fucking know. We so weren't supposed to know, in fact, that YouTube already took the video of this fucking conference down. If I hadn't DVR'd this shit, I wouldn't even have this fucking footage. Nothing to see here, folks, just damage control without any damage. And speaking of half-assed obfuscation, if you haven't yet beheld the slow-mo grand mal seizure occurring on the Maricopa County Twitter account, you are missing some of the finest comedy since Sam Kinison shuffled off this mortal coil. Throwing shade on sitting congresswomen, fact checks that cite 3-month-old articles that fail to reckon with any of the new evidence presented at the conference. It's a 5-alarm clown show for a fucking fact, folks, which as much as anything explains Katie Hobbs' makeup. And gang, are you ready? Are you clenched? Because this ain't even the mental breakdown du jour. We still get the actual audit results in a few fucking weeks. And so, Razor Force, I need you all to do exactly one thing for me. Prepare. No, not with duct tape, Twizzlers, or toilet paper. Bitch, I need you to pick up some popcorn. Because if you thought the day after the Don's election was hilarious, what we're about to witness is gonna make that meltdown look like a laugh-in. Strap in, boys, because like George Soros up Paul Penzone's pooper, we're going in dry. I'm Razorfist. God fucking speed.
Department of Justice sent us a letter about 4 or 6 weeks ago and said, we're concerned about you actually knocking on doors, that you might, might be voter intimidation or civil rights violation or something, which I find is interesting after the White House last week said we're going to knock on doors to see whether you're vaccinated or not. But that's a side point, just a little side point. But